footage that emerged of current President Joe Biden randomly donning a MAGA hat at a fire station in Pennsylvania did something to divert the public's attention.
There you go, man. I need that hat.
Want my autograph?
Hell no.
You know my name. Come on.
I ain't going that far.
Yeah, you said you would do a selfie. There he goes. Yeah. Hey, I'm proud of you now.
Look, people made fun of it, but I personally thought it was a rather wholesome moment in an otherwise very fractious election season. Although it did nothing to dispel the rumor that Joe Biden hates Kamala Harris. Nevertheless, both debate candidates appeared happy with their performances, although Donald Trump was quick to point out the pro-Democrat bias of the two ABC moderators.
I feel good. All right, joining us now, he's on the set in the spin room himself. Did you have fun?
I had a good time. I think it was our best debate ever. I thought it was really good. We had 3 against 1. But I anticipated.
Let's talk about that. 3 against 1, and all of her radical positions they leave on the table.
Yeah.
And while some might simply accuse Trump of being sore because Kamala gave him a harder time than Biden did at their July debate, although given the state of Biden at the time, that wasn't particularly hard, you only had to look at the litany of lies and dubious statements from Kamala that the ABC moderators allowed to fly through the hoop compared to their hounding of Trump over trivia to realize they were clearly barracking for one candidate over the other. In fact, the Trump campaign was so incensed by the lack of professionalism from ABC regarding their lack of scrutiny of Kamala, well, they decided to fact-check her themselves. So everyone, here is a summary of just a few of the porkies Kamala Harris told in the debate, which should have been picked up by the moderators, but weren't. First, Kamala claimed there are no members of the US military in active duty in a combat zone.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
But that's not technically true. While she chose her words very carefully, there are actually still 2,400 US troops in Iraq, and while it's no longer officially a combat mission, they still take part in raids targeting Islamic terrorist group ISIS, including one just a couple of weeks ago in which 7 US soldiers were injured. There are also about 800 US troops currently in Syria, primarily helping local allied armed groups who are fighting ISIS. Now, second, Kamala said she doesn't support a government takeover of healthcare, but in fact, she does.
You support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Third, Kamala said she doesn't support banning fracking, but in fact, she does.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands.
Fourth, Kamala shook her head and said it's not true when Donald Trump pointed out her support for the Defund the Police initiative that was oh so trendy during the Black Lives Matter Summer of Love in 2020 when far-left thugs rioted and burned down buildings for 3 months. But in fact, it is true that she has been on the side of defunding the police.
Where do you stand on defund the police?
Look, right. So here's the thing. Defund the police. The issue behind it is that we need to reimagine how we are creating safety. And when you have many cities that have 1/3 of their entire city budget focused on policing, we know that is not the smart way and the best way or the right way to achieve safety. For too long, the status quo thinking has been you get more safety by putting more cops on the street. Well, that's wrong.
Fifth, 7th, and this is a really bad one, Kamala denied that she raised money to bail out rioters during that same Summer of Love in 2020, when her tweet linking to the bail fund and encouraging people to donate on June the 2nd, 2020, is literally still up on her X account. Ridiculous. 6th, Kamala tried the lefty line that Donald Trump supports Project 2025. In fact, he doesn't, and has nothing to do with the project, at least according to the project's former director, Paul Dance.
You know, the breaking news is Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Sure, a lot of us have worked in the admin and came together, but this started long before he even announced for president.
7th, and I promise we are just about through these now, Kamala claimed Donald Trump supports a national abortion ban when he has repeatedly said he does not, and that it should be an issue for the states, not the federal government or the Supreme Court.
It was always fought, and very importantly, and people wanted it, they wanted it back in the states, where it belongs legally and for a lot of other reasons.
So you wouldn't support a national ban?
No, I wouldn't support a national ban. No, I would not.
And finally, and possibly most sensationally, Kamala claimed that Trump wants to ban IVF, when in fact he doesn't. Quite the opposite.
Mothers and fathers to have babies, not harder, you know that. That includes, and you saw this, it was a big deal over the last few days, that includes supporting the availability of fertility treatments like IVF in every state.
And that is not even all of Kamala's lies about Trump and her own policies that went unchallenged by the moderators at ABC. I'm very sorry to hit you with a list like that, but it has to be said. How can Americans who are still undecided on who to vote for properly form an opinion on each of the candidates when the scrutiny is only going one way in the debates? And it just shows how little the Democrats have to run on if Kamala Harris has to lie like that in order to land any kind of blow. Fortunately for Donald Trump, he did manage to drive home in his closing statement the salient point. Why hasn't Kamala already done the things she says she's going to do if she becomes president?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it?
If Trump can harness that attack and run with it at the next debate, he will be in with more than a fighting shot. Let's just hope the moderators behave themselves next time, for everyone's sake.